Nolan Wells, 18-year-old Nolan Wells, where it seems like TMZ has released emergency call audio footage that might put a whole spin on the case.
Were Nolan Wells' friends talking about him and talking about him possibly being dead while they were on their way back to the mainland from Horn Island? This is all because of some audio that we got from officials down in Mississippi. This audio is a call that's being made from the boat that Nolan's friends were on. So after they're on Horn Island on July 4th, at the end of the day, about 4:30, they decide they're heading back to the mainland. And the owner of that boat, or the grandson of the owner who's driving the boat, realizes that they are taking on water. Their bilge pump isn't working, so he places a call to a tow company called Sea Tow. And while he's on that call, there is a lot of commotion going on. And what people think is that in the background of that call, you can hear someone say, "Is he dead? Nolan, oh my God." It's really hard to make out. This is what it sounds like.
CETO Assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you? All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir?
No, we do not need that.
All right.
Oh, let the go. No, we do not need that.
Now, there are other parts of the audio where people think they hear the words "check his chest" or "wake up." One thing you can definitely hear clearly is the guy who's calling the tow company says, "Shut the bleep up." Now, he could have been yelling to some people. He does tell the dispatcher that there are about 7 people on board, all of them under the age of 20, under 21, he says. Now, here's what doesn't make sense. If they really were, and again, that audio is very difficult to make out. I mean, you can definitely hear, "oh my God." The Nolan and Izzy dead part is up to interpretation.
That is the biggest thing. We talked about this before. A lot of these audios and everything like that, it's hard to truly know what somebody says unless we get someone who spills the beans and exactly says what the conversation was. We won't never know if what they truly were saying in that background. The main things we can pick out was, or at least I could pick out, was "shut up." I might have heard Nolan, but it's hard. It could have been something else. Just like, think about when they gave us that video about saying, "give me my phone back," in the background. I couldn't hear anything, but they said somebody else came out and said that, oh, that was him screaming that. But you have to be careful. But this might be evidence that people want or need, or it just might be something that just puts more blinders over our eyes and keeps us away from the truth. Let's keep going.
What doesn't make sense is, why would they, if there had been foul play and something happened to Nolan, or someone did something to Nolan on that boat, why would they be talking about it loudly while he's on the phone to a tow company? Just doesn't add up. People we've spoken to in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, say that whole conversation here in the background is just chaos, as these young, as I say kids, but these young men were trying to get back to the shore and the boat's taking on water. They're all trying to figure out what to do. Are they going to have to get off the boat? That's what all that chaos is, what we're told by people connected to the kids who are on that boat. The other thing is, this is after 4:30. We have been told that there is evidence that, or the police have testimony from people, that Nolan was still on the island after 4:30. That would track with what Warren has been saying, that when they left at 4:30, they had a heated conversation with Nolan saying, "get on the boat, get on the boat." And he said, "I'm not going. I'm going to get a ride back with someone else." So it would make sense that Nolan would still be on Horn Island after 4:30, which means that this whole audio, while they're on the boat after 4:30, they've left Horn Island, they wouldn't be referring to Nolan. It just seems like people are hearing something that isn't actually there.
Nolan Wells, he's the 8th.
Wow. Whoa. That was some big information right there. So they have some information basically saying that Nolan Wells was still on the island. Still on the island after the boys left. That would throw a wrench in everyone who's saying that this is a plot, that they were against him, that they were never really his friends. If someone truly proves that he was on the island afterwards, and it was proven, what else can you say? Are people going to still say this? They're lying about it? But the police, we got to remember, the police haven't officially said anything yet, but if that's true, that's something big. That's something truly big. Let's get over into this. We got more questions. We'll go over to New News Nation because we got new questions about the Nolan Wells case. Let's get into it.
Boat trip to a remote Mississippi island is igniting nationwide debate. Jennifer, I want to take a moment to hear what Stephen A. Smith said about this case on Cuomo just a few days ago.
Listen, you're a dad. I'm a dad. We send our children out, and first of all, regardless of what ethnicity, regardless of what color we're talking about here, we send our children out, and you're the only one that doesn't come home alive. I'll be damned if the Chris Cuomo that I know doesn't want answers and doesn't expect answers. You know me, and I'm going to push for answers. So for no one to have answers as to what happens is when the suspicion elevates exponentially.
Seeing the video of Nolan is just so heartbreaking. He seems like such a happy kid. Now, the Daily Mail has identified a 19-year-old young woman who Nolan was last seen speaking to. Now, his friend said he chose to stay behind on Horn Island with that woman. But the woman's sister is claiming that's not true. He was ready to get back on the boat that he came on. Are all these differing accounts and a lack of understanding concerning to you?
Hold on. That was a big point. So did the sister claim that, or did we hear that from the actual woman's mouth? I want to hear from the actual woman's mouth. Did she say that, oh no, he didn't stay back with me? But let's keep going.
Well, I think two things can be true at once. It makes sense that he went off to see about a girl, as they say, and that they had conversation and that he decided to go back and be with friends. So I think it's more of a timing issue rather than something that is untrue on either end. I think both can be true at the same time.
Nolan's death is going to the Mississippi grand jury. The DA said something interesting, that the evidence will not be public until the grand jury reviews it first. The DA says this is to protect the integrity of the investigation and that the grand jury will ultimately decide if someone will be charged. Jennifer, do you believe someone could be charged in his death? Is this just an accident gone terribly wrong?
Well, with what we know, in other words, review of all the surveillance information we have, with actually getting to hear from one of the witnesses, one of his best friends that was there throughout the situation, listening to the calls that were made, the Coast Guard contact, as well as the riptide situation in that area. When you add it all together, what we see publicly seems to be an accident. Having said that, of course, there's going to be information. 60 witnesses interviewed. I doubt if this, from what we know, will come back with a true bill.
All right. Hopefully the families.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody will be charged for this case. No matter how you think about it, we lost someone in a tragic, possible accident. Now we don't know for sure. We got to wait for the more evidence to come out, but some people might still believe that they're hiding something about this. It's a tragic situation. I would like to believe that these young boys truly cared about their friend and made a stupid mistake by leaving him alone on the island. But I don't want to believe that these friends who he come to care about just betrayed him like that and wanted him dead. It's a tragic situation no matter how you look at it. Let's get over into the AI breakdown, y'all, just to wrap this up and see what else we can finish up. So, as we know, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources recently released 2 audio, C2 dispatch audio from July 4th, introducing a major contradiction and updates into the investigation. So everyone on board, during the 4 p.m. distress call regarding a failing pump, a teenager on the boat explicitly tells the dispatcher, yeah, everybody is on board. This directly contradicts the friend's timeline claiming that Nolan chose to remain behind on Horn Island. Now, I don't know if you can just jump to that. If you already know that he's staying, yes, everybody who's on the ship is on board, yes. I think that's what I would think. But it's possible that Nolan was there. I don't know. But when I hear that, I don't immediately jump to, oh, he means that everyone's on board. Nolan is there. But the dispatch logs shows that while the teenagers were panicking, a local CTO captain contacted the boat operator's grandfather, who stated that the situation was handled and prompting them to cancel the rescue response. So we know that the TMZ talked about saying that some listeners are claiming that they hear stuff in the background like, is he dead? Nolan, check his chest, wake up. However, some investigators and independent observers note that the phrases are unverified or may have occurred after the boat had already left the island. So as we know, the grand jury everything is being presented to the grand jury for review, and they will decide if a crime was committed. Officials state that autopsy results are held pending toxicology reports. The family's independent autopsy performed by pathologists in Washington found that the death was undetermined, noting that foul play cannot be ruled out. And the main things, and I remember the main things that came from was, one, the possible bruising on the back of the head. There was some possible bruising, but that could have been just blood pooling. And also the fact that his trachea was not with the rest of the body. Now, some people are saying if they released it or were done with it, they should have sent it everything. That's the only time they'll send the bodies with everything. Some are saying, and even the medical examiner who was doing the independent autopsy said that if I was still doing tests on it, I would hold that back myself. So who do you believe? And then the woman that Nolan reportedly speaking with on the island right before the group departed has been identified as 19-year-old Katie McCormick. And then the witness stated that regarding whether Nolan wanted to leave or stay remains heavily conflicted. That's the main thing. And then we know we got the GPS boat timeline and all that stuff, and Ben Crump talking about all the stuff. But what are y'all thoughts on this whole situation, y'all? It's a tragic situation, and we had Nolan Wells lose his life. The real question is it an accident, or was this some plot by his so-called friends who wanted him gone? Now, did they do a lot of stupid things? Yes. Do I immediately think that they are murderers? No. I think more evidence needs to come out, and that will prove to me if they're murderers. If they can't find any evidence about it, maybe they fooled us all, or they might have been innocent and it was a terrible accident. But like I've said before, do you think that the family will believe that Nolan Wells died by accident? Or will they always be hunting or saying that the young boys killed him and left him there to die? It's a tragic scene, y'all. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know if you disagree with anything I said.